Right, so I'm just here with Steffie, who's you're not facing the camera just to, for confidentiality reasons, but we're going to talk about the case and we're going to hopefully give you some advice and maybe help you out a little bit. Yeah, so from what I can gather, it's about unpaid wages, right?
Yes.
The problem you've got. So if I'm right about this, so you've been there not very long, so obviously less than 2 years.
Yes.
So you don't have those unfair dismissal rights.
Correct.
And you've been there and you were asked to take a period. Well, do you want to mention what happened just briefly in your own words?
Yes. So I was dismissed for like 6 weeks ago now, and they gave me 5 days to appeal that, and so I did. And the appeal was successful, and they told me that they were, admitted to all of their mistakes and all of their breaches. And then I feel like they doubled back and kind of tried to give a reason as to why they did dismiss me. And so they said that they were now required references that they should have gotten before I was actually employed. But by this point, I've already signed a full-time contract with them, and they hadn't gotten those references, and wasn't mentioned until literally less than 2 weeks before they had dismissed me. And so now and so for that period of time, they said that until they get those references, that this period of time will be unpaid leave. And I just think it's quite unfair for them to put me in the position that they have, dismissed me, admitted to their mistakes, and then to only then try to backtrack and leave me in a situation where I'm now being unpaid while also not looking for other employment because I'm still technically employed with the company. So I just wanted to know what my rights were on that matter, because even with the references, they've received them, but they're going about like they're asking for business registration numbers from the references that I'm getting. They're like really just asking for more details than they usually regularly would, and I just feel like
just to sort of, if I've got that right then, so you were dismissed from your job, but then you appealed and then you were given your job back, so the dismissal was kind of rescinded, or
exactly.
So they did a little rewind on that, and then but they then said, oh wait a minute, before you can actually come back into the office or whatever, we're going to have to get references from you that we should have got before
you even started the job. Exactly.
So now there's this delay whilst you go off and do that, and they want all sorts of specifics on there, and they're now suggesting that should be unpaid, this time off that you're currently having. And what are your rights, basically, in terms of that unpaid wages, the money you're losing. So it's a tough one because you've got less than 2 years service. You don't have any rights around unfair dismissal or constructive dismissal. So constructive dismissal being that if you did have more than 2 years, I would say you could easily walk out of your job, quit, and sue them for constructive dismissal, because what they're doing to you is unacceptable. And you'd have every right to resign and sue them for constructive dismissal. But you don't have those 2 years service, so you don't have that right. So the only way you can normally get around the 2 years is if there's anything to do with either discrimination, whistleblowing, or health and safety. I don't know if you've experienced any of those at all.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm not feeling personally targeted by this HR, but whether I've got enough evidence to prove that is a completely different matter. Many of the reasons that they were stating in the termination letter was things that me and my co-worker who started at the same time both hadn't received. So it was things like we haven't completed her onboarding because of all these reasons, but they hadn't completed hers either. And so it was really a lack of things on their behalf if they were overrun or didn't have the staff to do what they needed to do, but they were putting it on me personally. And I've been feeling, I don't want to say target, but I just feel like she doesn't like me, and that's not a good enough reason. Sadly, I can't get, much say, but because of that, I'm feeling like I'm being...
But okay, compared to your co-worker who was treated differently, so they weren't dismissed or forced to get references or something. What, protected characteristics, so there's race, religion, sex, sexual orientation, philosophical belief, and so on. There's 9. And do you have any differences, or what do you feel? Why are they targeting you? Not that you say you haven't got any evidence, but what is it for you?
I really wish I could, she mentioned I had one of the issues that I was having before all of this had started was me really much telling the HR lady that I was really frustrated with doing overtime. And she kept on insisting that it was a choice. Very much air quoted, because it wasn't a choice. I didn't get the choice about whether I could do it, because if I didn't do it, then that means the job wouldn't get done. And so it was very much like, you have a choice, while also putting me in the rota to do 13-hour shifts and doing all these extra hours. So it's like, and then I'd gotten to a place where I was like, look, I've had enough of these overtime, and respectfully, I'm now letting you know, I'm giving you warning that this weekend, which was, I think, the Christmas weekend, I was like, this will be the last weekend that I do any overtime, and going forward, I will only be doing my contracted hours.
Yeah.
I don't know how well she took that. They know I've got, I've let them know that I've got rheumatoid arthritis, and the company that I cope, which is the occupational therapist that you have to have a questionnaire with, they were very much like, that's considered a disability, and you've got your rights, and they really have no right to make you do any more hours than you are contracted, and if anything, we don't want you to. So they were very clear about that with me, and so I've let them know that, and I'm like, this is actually burdening me personally. So I was like, I don't want to do it anymore, and ever since then it just kind of took a left, and I don't think
So there's possible disability discrimination.
I don't know. I think so, and it was just like, I really don't know.
So we've got you don't have obvious evidence of people putting it in writing, or people don't put discrimination in writing because they know they're not supposed to. But you've got your colleague there who was subjected to different treatment, and in fact you were treated worse than your colleague. Yeah. So what you can do is you can point out the differences. If you're feeling that it's, for example, disability, you can say, look, technically I'm disabled, although, you obviously, you don't seem disabled, but if you've got a health condition that goes for more than 12 months under the employment law, then under the Equality Act, that counts as a disability. And my colleague isn't, for example, disabled, so you're treating me differently from them. You can talk about health and safety in regards to those long hours that they were getting you to do. And that could be in contravention of health and safety laws. So under Section 44 of the Employment Rights Act, you've got a right not to be subjected to what's called detriments for raising health and safety issues. So if you raise a health and safety issue, they're not allowed to treat you worse for that. Yeah. And so in this case, even if you do have less than 2 years service, you do have arguments you can make. Yeah. Now, whether those arguments would stand up in court or not, it's not saying that's irrelevant, because that is important, but actually, what are the practical ways that you can get to where your goals are in this case? So your goals really are to get paid for the time off, which is a number of weeks off, right? Exactly. It's not to leave the company and sue them. Well, no one wants to go to court, or they might do, but it's not great. No, it's not great. It's a last resort. Yeah. Do you want to keep the job, or do you want to leave? Or you're not sure at this point? Exactly. I'm really unsure. I don't know how, at the end of the day, I don't think this HR manager who happily fired me and then it got rescinded by the HR director, I don't know. I feel like she's going out of her way to not get me back. I'm sure that will look a certain way on her, to have her management, to be undermined, to be, you know what I mean? So I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be going back, but I also am happy to return because I've got, I'm going away for a period of time. So it was never like the job that I was trying to keep forever, but it was what I needed at the time, and the pay and the location and everything about it was exactly what I wanted, Right, so what I would do then is I would put together a without prejudice letter, and I would send it to them. An email would be fine, just an email would be fine. I would send it to them setting out that I would query these things, perhaps depending, because you're not sure about leaving or not. Yeah. Your first port of call is to stay with this job, which you've got a decent job. Yeah. So I would just perhaps query them and just say, I have, for example, in a more subtle way. So rather than you're discriminating against me, more like I am aware that my colleague was treated differently. My colleague doesn't have these protected characteristics, you know, disability or gender or you know, race or ethnic origin, whatever it is, you know, whatever they're different to you in that way. So I don't know if that's part of the decision-making process here, even a subconscious bias. You could suggest, because no one's going to admit that they're doing it deliberately, but you can suggest it's like a subconscious bias.
Yeah.
And also I've raised problems with my disability, and from a health and safety point of view, that's why I felt that I was being treated in this way initially. And I shouldn't now be subjected to this financial loss, which is to have my wages unpaid. So I urge you to reconsider, and you can keep the powder dry a little bit. You don't have to say, and if you don't reply in 7 days, you know, we'll be going to court. Yeah. That's the second letter, right? Yeah. You can always bring that in, the heavy ammo after. To start with, just drop in the hints that you know what you're talking about. Yeah. We've got on our website the virtual lawyer, which is a letter building, like a template building app. Well, it's kind of an app, but it's just a web app. So you can just go. So you don't have to sign up. It's free. Okay. It's, you know, and you can make a letter there and fill in the blanks. And you can get onto ChatGPT and use that to help you fill in the blanks as well, which is online, like an AI thing. Okay. You can get that letter going on, and you know, you might decide to do it in a phone call or a meeting. That's another option. If you do that, you can ask them for a protected conversation. Okay. But I would recommend writing the letter first, so at least you know your script, you know what you're going to say. Okay. So whether you send that email, or whether you do it verbally, because you've got it there, you've put out your case in writing, you will know what your points are. And the worst case scenario, and you've got to be aware that going down this route, some companies don't really like it.
I mean, I couldn't imagine they would.
You can imagine, right? So it might become, who knows? They might say, gosh, you're right, you know, we're sorry, here you are, and here's the money back at least. Please carry on. And they might, you know, or if they start getting funny with you and making it out that they're trying to make your life difficult, obviously it's time to look for another job at that point. Yeah. And then you can consider what to do about it if they don't give you your money back. Do you want to continue working for these people, or would you rather get another job? And it is free to issue an employment tribunal claim. Yeah. And a lot of companies, they won't negotiate with people unless they do. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the majority are like that. It's still a minority. Yeah. Majority of people just want to negotiate, especially if they've treated you badly, like in this case, right? It sounds like this should never have happened to you. It's not like you're making it up. They should have paid you. You know, it's up to them to get references before you join. Right? It can't be up to you.
And bringing it up like you should have never been employed. You should. Well, I am, and it's a bit too late. Like we're kind of past that point. You can't.
It's not your fault.
It's not. You really should have did your work before.
Yeah, they're the HR department.
Exactly. Right? And she was telling me, you know, oh, the HR manager started not long before you. Again, that's really. Yeah, your mistake.
They've got a rookie HR person, and that's now your fault somehow.
They really could have, at the minimum, they could have brought me back and given me the same amount of time, because they're like, well, you know, 2 to 4 weeks to make sure you give us your references. I could have been reinstated doing my hours. Yeah. While this issue was being
pending your references or something.
Exactly.
That's reasonable. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So here it's not just about what's legal or not. It's what's reasonable. What's common sense, and why are they treating people like this? Yeah. They've got some brand new rookie HR person. That's somehow your fault, and you're literally paying the price. I mean, that's not right, is it? So I would support you in terms of getting, you know, taking the steps. At the end of the day, you've got rights, and the right to be paid for a job is surely a right, you know, in this country and in most countries in the world. So I think that's fair enough. I think you should stand up for yourself.
I really have been trying to, and I think this whole time, and you know, my last company, sadly, that ended in ACAS as well, and I wish that this was available to me at that point, because I really didn't know what to do, and I didn't take it to employment tribunal, so it just kind of got left in that situation.
ACAS are kind of neutral. They don't represent they don't represent you, they don't advise you.
Yeah, they really didn't give me much advice as to what to do.
Yeah, they just kind of go from one side to the other, but obviously, you know, we're here to represent employees only, and that's what we're like passionate about, and we believe people should you know, get a fair deal. And actually, it's better for everyone. It's better for the economy.
Yeah.
It's better for even for the companies involved. If they treat people better, people stay longer. They work harder. It doesn't make sense. This old Victorian way of treating people doesn't make sense.
You know, and it was really upsetting because no one in my actual team had an issue with me. Like, you know, my line manager, my head chef, she had great things to say about me, and so did everyone else, apart from this one particular HR manager. So it's like, and I don't work with her. You know, we don't even work anywhere near each other. We don't actually see each other throughout the whole day. So for her to fire me, considering we don't have a working relationship, minus some emails that we send back and forth, like, it's just a really unfair situation to be, you know, to be put in, to be honest.
Fair enough. Okay, well, yeah, best of luck with that. And you know, if you want to send over your letter, have a quick look at it.
Okay.
You know, double check it for you. But yeah.
All right, brilliant. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks.